Those tormentors did everything they could to make the innocent girl's life absolutely miserable. The poor girl sat curled up on the damp ground as the other kids surrounded her, grinning wickedly. They dumped ice-cold soda all over her, watching it soak her thin clothes. Then they ripped open paper bags full of cheap glitter, showering her until she sparkled. Even with tears in her eyes, she didn't try to stop them. This just made the bullies even meaner as they drizzled thick caramel syrup all over her, turning her into what they laughed was a walking Sunday for their chief troublemaker's big day. The girl's name was Bethany. She had a sister named Clara, and even though they looked exactly alike, they were very different. Since their mom passed away, the girls had been sent to different homes. Clara got lucky, and a nice family in the big town of Oakhaven adopted her, while Bethany had a rough life at Willow Creek Shelter. She had to grow up fast, helping take care of younger kids while barely being old enough herself. Because of her hard life, Bethany was shy and quiet, making her an easy target for bullies at school. Her sister Clara, on the other hand, had a good childhood but became unkind and thought only of herself. Her adoptive mum always gave her whatever she wanted, so Clara didn't care about other people's feelings. That day, Clara was on a trip to the art museum, listening to her favorite music on her phone while watching her cat's videos online. When her cat did something funny, Clara giggled loudly, making the other kids look at her strangely. At the same time, Bethany was dealing with the usual bullying. It was the meanest girl's birthday, so the others decided to make Bethany into a walking dessert. They smashed sodas over her, covered her with glitter, and poured caramel all over her. The head bully, Abigail, watched Bethany's sad face silently for a moment, like she might feel bad. But then, she started laughing loudly and made a thumbs up to thank her friends. It didn't end there. Bethany had to change into her old clothes, sticky with caramel, and go to class where no one felt sorry for her. Instead, they made faces like the smell bothered them. Her seatmate even told Bethany to stay away, like her bad luck could spread. Even worse, after class, her teacher, Mrs. Gable, took her aside for a talk. She told Bethany her clothes were a mess and she smelled bad. All day at school, Bethany heard mean words and laughing. The next day, Bethany felt sick and stayed home. When she went outside the shelter for some air, she saw the bullies coming toward her. They were pretending to help out at the shelter to get out of a detention, but they really wanted to bother Bethany more. Bethany felt weak, but she stayed quiet so she wouldn't cause problems for Ms. Daisy, who ran the shelter. It was harder because Abigail's dad, Mr. Thornton, gave a lot of money to the shelter, so Bethany had to put up with whatever they did. Abigail often bragged about her dad's good heart and how he was always looking for ways to help. Hearing this and wanting to make things better at the shelter, Bethany asked Abigail to meet her that night. She asked Abigail to talk to her dad about giving more money, but Bethany was too trusting. Abigail said she would use Bethany's phone to ask her dad about the money. Instead, she sent mean messages to all the bullies, making them hate Bethany even more. When they both found out what Abigail had done, they got into a fight. During the fight, Abigail fell onto some old, rusty tools. Bethany, even after everything Abigail had done, covered Abigail with her body, thinking it might change Abigail's heart. Instead, Abigail used her parents' power to make the school kick Bethany out. Knowing Bethany couldn't fight back against their money and connections, knowing she couldn't win against the Thornton family, Bethany begged Mrs. Gable to let her come to class just one more time before she had to leave. But when she came to class on her last day, the bullies were waiting with something even worse planned. They had written mean things all over her desk and surrounded her, planning to rip her clothes and take pictures. But Bethany found the strength to push them away and run. She ran across the schoolyard, feeling so much pressure that she couldn't think straight. At the same time, Clara was getting out of her family's fancy car when she got a strange message from someone she didn't know. She felt angry when she read it, and her expensive phone fell from her hands. When she got back in the car, She seemed annoyed at her best friend Olivia, which was unusual for her. That night, while sitting in the big living room of her family's house, Clara got a phone call. After grabbing her phone and leaving quickly, Olivia became worried and followed her quietly. Olivia saw Clara meeting with a strange person and arguing before storming off, upset. The next day, Clara's class took a bus to the lake for their yearly trip. Clara looked sad, and she couldn't hide it. Even though they had been apart for a long time, she still remembered Bethany, even though they had never met as teenagers. They were both at the same cafe at one point, but the sisters walked past each other without knowing who the other was. When it was time for the class picture at the lake, everyone panicked because they couldn't find Clara. The whole class started searching the trails, but they couldn't find her anywhere. The school called Clara's mom, and she was very worried. Mrs. Albright rushed to the lake, very sad and unable to talk clearly through her crying. Clara's best friend Noah, who had a crush on her, was very worried when he heard she was missing. He couldn't stop thinking about Clara's safety, so he didn't focus and lost his important art competition, which he had worked on all year. Mrs. Albright couldn't accept that something bad had happened, so she kept looking for news about her daughter, hiring people to help and asking for volunteers. Then one day, after many weeks, she got a call from Oakhaven Hospital. It seemed like her worrying was finally over. But the good news didn't last long. Mrs. Albright learned that her daughter had lost her memory because of stress and sadness. The doctors said she might get her memories back, or she might forget everything about her life, even who she was. As Clara was getting ready to leave the hospital in a wheelchair, still weak, she saw Abigail in the hallway. Abigail thought Clara was Bethany because they looked alike, so she started bullying her, not knowing it was the wrong person. Mrs. Albright came just in time to pull Abigail away from her confused daughter. Abigail realized she had made a mistake. She said sorry quickly and ran away, embarrassed. At the same time, Noah still didn't know that Clara was safe. He sat alone in his empty house, looking at old pictures and remembering when he had promised something years ago. He had promised to win an art prize and give it to Clara to show her how much he cared, so he had worked hard for years. He went to her hospital room as soon as he got his prize, but Clara didn't care. She said she didn't remember him and didn't care about any promises from the past. Those words hurt Noah deeply. Then he noticed a new mark on Clara's arm that hadn't been there before she went missing. He asked what had happened. Clara stepped back and told him he couldn't help her. Noah couldn't understand why Clara had changed so much. After hearing that Clara was safe, Noah rushed to the hospital. But Clara, having forgotten everything, didn't know him at all when they were in the same elevator. It was like they were strangers. Noah remembered the words Clara had said before she disappeared. He had thought she was teasing him, so he had hugged her. But after learning she had lost her memory, Noah was very sad to find out she had forgotten their whole relationship. When Clara asked if they had been friends, Noah and Olivia ran out of the hospital room, unable to see her confusion. Mrs. Albright wanted her daughter to get her memories back as soon as possible, so she brought Clara back home. They spent hours looking at old photos, trying to make her remember. Clara wondered why there were no pictures of her as a little girl in the albums. Her mom said Clara had been found alone in a park when she was 5, with no memory of her life before that. Before Clara could think about this, her mom said she needed to go back to school to get back to normal. At school, Clara met a nice girl from the hospital who was also getting better from an accident. Everyone was surprised to see how much Clara had changed. She used to be tough and rebellious, but now she was quiet and scared. She used to never say hello to anyone, but now she was completely different. Seeing that she had lost her memory, some of the kids tried to help her by taking her to a fun fair. But since they didn't have enough money to buy the tickets, the whole group ended up getting escorted out of the park. Too scared to call their parents, they had to call their teacher, Mr. Hayes, to help them. But the teacher didn't have enough money to pay for the expensive tickets, and he was shocked when he saw the total cost. He asked if he could pay some now and the rest later. While waiting for the bus, Clara was happy to find out that someone was going the same way as her. But they weren't as friendly as she thought. Before she lost her memory, their relationship had been difficult. The next morning, Clara woke up early on her own. Feeling energetic, she decided to ride her bike around the neighborhood. She saw Noah at the gate, who was also going for a morning workout, so they ended up exercising together, making an awkward but nice routine. When she got to school, Clara tried to open her locker, but after many tries, she still couldn't remember the combination and gave up. Then, Clara realized that her friend who had gone to the fun fair with her hadn't been at school for days. Before she could sit down, that friend walked into the classroom with Mr. Hayes. The teacher asked Clara to open her locker so they could find some missing things. When she said she couldn't remember the combination because of her amnesia, the teacher told the class president to get a hammer from the closet. But Clara's friend, a boy named Jason, grabbed a chair and smashed the locker open. When the door opened, there was only a box inside with what looked like a diamond bracelet. A girl named Sophie said the bracelet belonged to her and had been stolen from her house. Everyone looked at Clara, but she didn't remember anything about it. Mr. Hayes told Clara to come to the staff room to talk about the theft, but Noah grabbed her hand and pulled her outside before she could be questioned. Clara asked why she had to run away when she wanted to clear things up. Since Clara couldn't remember anything to defend herself, Noah didn't want her to be talked about badly. At that moment, Sophie was telling her story to Mr. Hayes in the staff room. She said Clara had forced her to give her money, threatening to hurt her if she didn't. Since Sophie said she had no money left, she had taken her bracelet to use as payment for Clara's demands. However, because Clara had lost her memory, Mr. Hayes felt he had to call their parents to talk about this. But Sophie didn't want to involve their families. Meanwhile, Clara watched as Sophie's mom arrived at the school, angry and wanting answers. Clara asked her friends, Noah and Olivia, about her relationship with Sophie, asking if she had really been bullying her before her accident. Olivia said no. Still unsure about herself, Clara wanted to hear from Sophie. But every time she called Sophie's phone, it went to voicemail. The next morning, Clara and Noah met up for their exercise routine. While resting on a bench, Noah noticed that the mark on Clara's arm had disappeared without a trace. But when he said this, Clara had no memory of it. When she got to school that day, she heard classmates talking about her alleged crime. She wondered what kind of person she had been before losing her memories. Feeling sad and confused, Clara went to the school roof to be alone. There she saw Jason, who had been avoiding her since the locker incident. She learned that he was the one who had broken her locker door months ago. She had yelled at him then, and that was the only time they had talked. Meanwhile, the school was investigating the theft of Sophie's bracelet. From looking at students' spending and social media, they found that Sophie was always the one paying for everything when they went out together. She even bought gifts for others. However, Clara was the only one who never took anything from Sophie and never invited Sophie to join their activities. Because of this, some thought that Clara had been taking money from Sophie and was now pretending to have amnesia to avoid getting in trouble. Olivia, hearing these rumors, defended her friend. For some reason, seeing this triggered a memory in Clara's mind. A memory of someone who looked like her being bullied by cruel students. Could it be that Clara was actually Bethany, the girl from the shelter? When she got home that night, Clara tried to hide what had happened, but she couldn't hide it from her worried mom. Mrs. Albright asked why her daughter hadn't told her about these problems. Clara said that since she couldn't remember her past, she was afraid that if she had committed theft, it would disappoint her mom, who had shown her so much love. Feeling better after her mom's words, Clara began to trust that she hadn't bullied or stolen from Sophie. The next day at school, Olivia noticed that someone had put white roses on Clara's desk, flowers that mean sadness and loss. After looking around, Olivia found out that Sophie was the one who had done this. So Olivia and Noah pulled Sophie aside to talk to her about her strange behavior. Olivia asked why she had put those flowers on Clara's desk and what she had done to Clara's locker before the memory loss. Sophie said she didn't do anything. Clara's friends asked if she had lied about them forcing her to pay for the fun fair, something they had never done. But Sophie said they had always treated her like she was invisible, bringing her along only to pay their bills without being real friends. Sophie said she had wanted to be friends with them, not just a source of money. She said she hadn't wanted the school to investigate because she was afraid they would find out she had no real friends, only people who used her for money. But now she had changed her mind. Sophie told Clara's friends to get ready for punishment when the truth came out. That evening, Clara saw Sophie sneaking around her locker area after school. She said she thought they had switched lockers before the lake trip. Unable to lie anymore, Sophie finally told the truth, crying. She said she was jealous of everything Clara had, her beauty, her confidence, her leadership, and her friendships. Sophie had wanted Clara to feel the same sadness and loneliness that she had felt for years. When something sad happens, everyone needs a safe place to let it all out. Clara was no different. She went to Noah to tell him about what she had learned and how confused she was about who she was. While they were splashing water at each other by the school fountain, trying to feel better, Clara slipped on the wet ground and fell into the pool. As she struggled in the water, unable to swim, her lost memories suddenly came back. She had jumped into the lake behind the shelter, wanting to end her life. But someone who looked like her had saved her. It was Bethany, the bullied girl from Willow Creek Shelter, and the person who had saved her was her twin sister, Clara. The life Clara was living now was the life that the real Clara had left behind when she disappeared. Everything Clara had experienced, the loving mother, the beautiful home, the education, all of it belonged to her sister. Feeling shocked, Clara went home, unsure if those memories were real or just made up. She looked through Clara's things until she found a diary in a drawer. Reading the diary, Clara knew that those memories were real. She was Bethany, the girl who had grown up in the orphanage, not Clara, the daughter of a wealthy family. But by losing her memory and switching lives, Bethany had finally known the happiness of having a loving mother. She hugged Mrs. Albright, surprising her with the sudden affection. The next day, Clara told Mr. Hayes the whole story in his office. She said that she and Sophie had switched lockers before the trip, but Mr. Hayes had come too soon, so Sophie didn't know what to do. Sophie had planned to confess everything during the hearing about the theft. But as Sophie was about to tell the truth, Clara, still pretending to be Aria, took responsibility for bullying and taking money from Sophie, even though she hadn't done those things. Having been a victim of bullying herself, Clara understood the fear and loneliness that Sophie felt. This made Sophie surprised and grateful. Clara even sent Sophie poems and messages, telling her not to be afraid. Clara said that no matter how hard things were, she would always be there for her as a friend. Sophie felt overwhelmed by these kind words. Maybe she had finally found someone who cared about her, not just used her. Everything was resolved in the best way for everyone. However, Sophie still chose to leave the school instead of facing the awkwardness. She made drawings for all her classmates, saying goodbye and thanking them for being part of her youth. 25814